Welcome, everyone. I did not do a course project, so I am just presenting my reflections on the course. My name is Pierre. I work as a machine learning engineer at a large insurance company, and my experience with AWS is I use these products every day, but my experience is in somewhat of a walled garden. IT manages the AWS infrastructure to some degree for me. My experience of it is like on safety mode. If I were to join another company that's smaller or try to do any of this stuff on my own, I would basically be learning it from scratch. When I saw Eric's making a course on this, I thought, I don't know what I don't know. And it's been a while since I have done an AWS course. It's been about 4 years and things change all the time. And Eric's a great teacher, so I figured I would join it. I'll go through some of the highlights of each week. So on the first week, we set up an AWS account from scratch and got introduced to the course template repository. So for the account setup, we made an enterprise account with single sign-on, set up groups and users to like safely do all that stuff. And also got introduced to the project template repository, which Eric set up to have some nice automation features, such as make files with good targets for building and testing and all that stuff. And some of the highlights from it this week were Eric showing us how to integrate Boto 3 stubs into VS Code so we can get auto suggestions for any of the AWS SDK things for Python, which is super cool. I wish I had that earlier because the documentation, there's so much. And then he also showed us how to mock S3 for unit tests using Moto. So we don't have to actually integrate with AWS for every single test, which is nice. And then in the next week, we covered APIs and the history of the different types of APIs from GraphQL, SOAP, all those different things. And then did deep dive on REST and even Roy Fielding's thesis paper that introduced like what is a technically REST API and then what do people know as REST APIs today. So that was interesting backstory and context that will help. And then we also spent a good amount of time building our project and making unit tests for it. So build a fully tested design REST API. And then once we had the happy path for all the settings in week 2, we spent week 3 hardening the application with error handling, data validation with Pydantic, and fast API middleware. And then went on the history of it, API contracts and OAS documents. And one of the coolest things was learning how to integrate OAS violations in CI. So we fail build if it breaks the API contract. So that was cool. And then went into a deep dive on AWS Lambda and deployed our REST API on Lambda, which I didn't even think that was practical at first. So that was cool. And then in week 4, we covered API gateways as a way to have like a service listening for HTTP requests and then converting it into something that Lambda could handle, which allowed us to serve our application. In this week, Eric covered some of the AWS service limits on Lambda and API gateway, which kind of conflicts with the spirit of the app we're building. And he revealed it in a way that was a good learning lesson because anybody who works with AWS and doesn't know all might have some assumptions about how AWS services work up front, but you get deep into the project only to find it's not feasible because of some AWS service level limit. So that's a lesson I'll take forward. I haven't finished the observability section yet, but even just the ones that I've done so far have been great. Having completed the course, I have a bigger picture on the AWS landscape and like the history of REST APIs and just good context and foundations for REST API design and testing of them. I'm less reliant on IT. So one of my goals was to learn these services without any help from my IT team. And I was able to do it. So that's good. And I have foundations I can build onto. And I'm ready for a infrastructure as code course. Now that I know how to do things manually, it'd be nice to know how to automate the process. And the real prize is the relationships we build along the way. With this being a cohort-based course, it was good to meet interesting people and like all the experience they have and learn together. So thank you. This is my demonstration. Bye.